and welcome to this edition of the Boob Tube Buddies podcast, featuring our discussion of the incredible HBO show Westworld, episode 4, entitled Dissonance Theory. A couple of quick bits of information. You can check out all of our content at www.boobtubebuddies.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Reddit, or just email us at boobtubebuddies@gmail.com to get in on the conversation. We'll make sure your questions and theories get on air, but without further ado, my name is Foxman, and I am joined by the man in black eyeliner. What's going on, Mothman?
Oh, so good, so good. I love that we're officially done with our real names. We're just way too fucking awesome at this point.
Of course, mine is my real name.
But it's just your last name. You used to say Adam at the beginning.
Yeah, that is true. Okay,
Yeah.
So you've just given it up anyways.
Well, you know.
Mathis goose.
God damn it.
All right, so I left out a couple of tidbits of information because I feel like I get a little wordy there in the beginning. So you want to let them know about whatever other stuff like iTunes, other shows, Amazon real quick before we get into it?
Absolutely. So, one, we're doing a whole bunch of different other shows. So, Luke Cage, we are on the second half of at this point. We have American Horror Story going on by the Boob Tube Buddies. We are doing, obviously, Westworld. We're even going to do a little Walking Dead after this. And we're not going to make it a regular thing, but we just figured all the hype of the season 7 premiere and how sweet it is, we'd cover that. We just did one for Rocky Horror Picture Show, Ash vs. Evil Dead. I feel like we're a whole network at this point, don't you?
I mean, without sounding like douchey, like, oh, my podcast network. I mean, that basically is what it is. We have multiple different sets of hosts covering different shows. And by the way, we could have a discussion about continuing on The Walking Dead. I mean, because you have read all of the is it graphic novels? That's what it is?
I mean, they've been collected into trade paperbacks, but it's basically just comics.
See, now, that sounds like the response of somebody that should be podcasting about The Walking Dead.
Probably. So maybe we'll continue it. I mean, I don't know that we need to do these crazy long recaps, but I don't know. It'll be interesting. I felt like the premiere, bare minimum, just needed to be almost like a reaction video.
Yeah, I agree. It warrants discussion. But anyway, that's not what we're here to do.
It's not. One last thing is simply every episode we do, there are links in our description. The links are to relevant media. So for this one, it's like the original Westworld and Future World. But if we happen to reference movies or music or TV shows, we also throw those links in there. It's another great way to support us without spending any more money than you normally would on whatever links we put in there. So enjoy.
Nice. I guess that's that. Oh, well, rate us on iTunes, yada, yada, yada. But, fuck it. Nobody ever does anyway.
I know, Jesus. I mean, we do have 30.
Debbie Downer.
If I can just say, as this episode started, I was already excited because I'm loving the series. But then I noticed this episode was written by one Ed Brubaker, who is one of my favorite comic authors.
Damn, Eddie Brubes. Didn't realize that.
And it's the only episode he did in the whole season. And it's him and someone else. So I'm sure he just got hired on to do a rewrite or something, but it was pretty cool. And for those who aren't really into comics, he, in the Marvel world, is most known for creating the Winter Soldier character, which they did the movie after.
Oh, wow. That's actually kind of cool claim to fame. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he brought back Bucky, who died in the 40s, with the Winter Soldier origin, but he also has some just phenomenal comics work. One of them is called Criminal. All kinds of stuff. So I thought I'd point that out there because this was a particularly enjoyable episode, and I really thought they did a good job with the different storylines and threads and the plotting.
Hell yeah. Okay, let's get into it. That was a good little piece of information. Just for everybody listening, we don't necessarily go sequentially here. In fact, this time we've broken it up into individual plot lines. So we're going to start off with Dolores and William and just kind of go through every bit of their plot throughout the episode. You ready for it?
I'm so ready.
Okay, so it opens up in I'm just going to call it the Delos basement room because that's basically what this seems like, some off to the side hidden room that he's got set up where he and Dolores meet. That's Bernard and Dolores. Mm-hmm. And I am curious because this is occurring basically after last episode where she passed out at the camp where William is at. Mm-hmm. So how did he extract her to get her into this room? The whole thing about this place is it's supposed to be this intense level of immersiveness. Wouldn't somebody showing up in the middle of the night and abducting your robot kind of I don't know, throw off some of that?
Maybe. I mean, is there
And
any,
how do they never spot these people doing this?
is there, I mean, well, like some people are spotting them, which we'll get to later, but is there anything that's said in this conversation that makes you think it's done in the middle of that interaction? And not just at the end of William and Logan's story with her?
I mean, I guess that's a good point. That was right after watching it, that's how I felt, was like it had just happened right then. Like, he referenced stuff with the family, but I guess that could, well, no, because she's talking like really upset, like it had just happened about her family being killed in front of her. Now, to be fair, that's happened multiple times.
Yeah.
It's just, it seems in that moment, that is literally exactly what just happened, what she had been panicking about as she had stumbled into William's camp. So the timing seems a little suspicious.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I just took it as the motif they have where they always have a Bernard Dolores scene, and they're always recapping events that have happened, but it doesn't, it's not necessarily exactly in the same time frame as what we're actually seeing on there. But I did like that she, she said, pain is all that I have left of them, of the family, which is something that Bernard has said about his dead
Charlie.
son, which there's a theory I read online that is seeming more and more likely that Bernard is just like the ultimate robot that's working for Ford.
Yeah, I read the exact same thing. And to take it a step further, if he was, clearly he's made in the mold of Arnold.
Possibly.
I mean, definitely, because even Ford tells him, be careful that Arnold made the same mistakes. You mustn't look at, like basically saying like you're going down the road of Arnold a little bit in that last episode when he's exiting Ford's office. So there are some very real similarities between Bernard's take on things and his entire interactions with Dolores for everything that we know about Arnold.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely implying some parallels, but whether it's very, very, very similar or the same, or it's simply that they're kind of getting towards the same conclusion where they are actually having more interesting interactions with robots rather than humans, and we'll see where that goes. I think they're kind of giving you a little bit more each and every episode without really fully disclosing much. And the thing about this show is that everything is so almost subjective and like vague that you'll drive yourself crazy trying to really predict. It's almost like just let it take you on the ride.
I like predicting.
Oh, I do too. But it's like, we have, you almost have like a solid, like there's really compelling fan theories on episode 1 that like William was in a different time zone and it's not the present day events. And then like, within an episode, it's blown out of the water. So you keep having these things happen. But yes, I'll agree. It's fun to speculate.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so she's, just to go a little bit more into it without like going line by line, but I loved the quote she said about she feels spaces opening up inside of her like a building with rooms she's never explored. And then he asks her, did you come up with that on your own? And then she kind of like gets stone-faced and she's like, it's a self-adapted line that she took from a program line about love. I thought that was kind of a cool adaptability. Yeah,
she explains exactly where it came from. Like it's not spontaneous, but it kind of is. And she explains the thought process behind it, which is just a weird thing for a robot to be doing.
Yes.
And they continue to use like the tricks where she's very emotional and doing a good job acting, just like, Abernathy was doing. But then he just says, turn off your emotional like response or whatever. And then she's just stone-faced telling you about it.
Yeah. And I love just the moments like that where you're getting these real emotional, heartfelt type moments. And then the stark realization that, oh, wait, this is a robot, when they're given simple commands to turn off bits of like emotional filters and things like that. But she does say here that there might be something wrong with this world, like something's hidden underneath, which we'd actually seen in the trailer before. And then she says, if not, she's losing her mind. And at this point, he actually tells her about this secret game called The Maze and find the center and maybe you'll be free, which is really interesting because first off, we don't at this point even know that people like Bernard know about the maze.
Yep.
So that's an interesting little tidbit there. And then we had actually talked about the maze possibly being like a physical manifestation of the Turing test, and that kind of feeds into that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Dolores wakes up outdoors in camp with with William, and William wants to take her back to town, but Logan is like, what the fuck, dude? I didn't want to come out here. You dragged me along on this stupid fucking white hat excursion, and now you just want to turn back now that we're almost like hot on the heels of this guy? No, like, fuck that.
Yeah, I mean, Logan's obviously like the pro who's trying to have an off the beaten path time. He already was frustrated that, William was trying to get attached to Dolores, and now he's just pointing out the fact that this is obviously just a ploy from this world, and that's what's trying to happen. But, William just wants to take care of her, and they're continually at odds with each other.
Yeah, he keeps, would you call it breaking the fourth wall here? Like continuing to talk about the experience that they're within? Or is fourth wall only our television set? So is he breaking like the third wall or the fifth wall? I don't know which wall is he breaking.
Yeah, I think fourth wall. I think fourth wall is referring to the medium you are supposed to be immersed in.
Us as the viewer, but he is breaking.
Exactly.
I believe that like their fourth wall. You know what I mean? Not our fourth wall, but his.
Yes, which would be second and a half wall.
2 squared.
I don't understand what it is. But there's also a line in here where he says something about the company should like bump up her stake in this place.
Very important part, I thought.
Yeah, says that with our family, like everything is business. So you already know Logan and William aren't just brother-in-laws. Now they're co-workers, and they're for a company that may not own the park, but they at least have some sort of stock or investment in Delos. Which
definitely feeds into the possibility of him being the representative that Ford talks about later that is here on behalf of the board.
Oh, I didn't even put that together. Yeah, that could make sense. I thought Ford
I read
was just
a theory
implying
online
that he killed him.
Yeah, I read online a theory that maybe it's the Man in Black, which is a possibility because we actually do see Ford talking with the Man in Black in scenes for next episode. So, I mean, take your pick of who your theory is here. It could be either one. But this line specifically made me think that it was Logan.
Yeah, well, the other line that made me, I didn't tie that together, the representative, but the other line that's later in the show is about the Man in Black, and there's another guest that recognizes him and says, like, something about his foundation did so much for my daughter. Man in Black is an ass to them because, he's on vacation, right? He's out there having a good time with violence and he doesn't want to be talked to. But you wonder, is the foundation, Delos, or is it just another stakeholder? So both him and Logan have these ambiguous ties to the owners of the park, but you're not sure how deep the roots go.
Yeah, we'll get to that scene in a little bit. I didn't take it as his foundation having anything necessarily to do with it, because it seemed like it was just like he said that and we'll get into it in a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
Okay, so Stubbs is being told at this point that Dolores is off her loop, and they can't tell if it's messing up the plot of the other, messing up the plot for the guests, like William and Logan, because Dr. Ford's new narrative has thrown off multiple plot lines. They basically have no idea who's supposed to be where, and if they're not there, then what sort of tangent are they on? Is this programmed by Dr. Ford, or
Sure.
is this just randomly occurring? So it's really throwing things into quite a state of disarray.
Yeah, all their normal monitoring for narratives and trying to ensure. I mean, we've talked about in the past, they have almost metrics to adhere to, like how many times are these Horbots seducing men. So every person has its own type of metric before they revoke it or maybe put something new and exciting in.
By the way, I really take offense to the term Horbots. They're obviously botstitutes.
Botstitutes, that's pretty good too. so the botstitutes. But anyway, all of the stuff that we've seen them do in the past seems like it's rendered essentially useless outside of the general troubleshooting for anomalies such as smashing rocks into their faces.
Yeah. And by the way, you're sure you can't hear my dog snoring? He is going ham on his fucking lungs right now.
I can't. Hopefully the audience can't either.
Oh my God. It's seriously registering on the Richter scale over here, rattling my equipment from across the house.
Oh my goodness. Anyway.
Okay, yeah, anyway. So basically, yeah, Stubbs tells this person, okay, we'll pull her tonight. We'll see if everything's checking out. And so then we get Dolores and William in town. It's the same town, actually, that the Man in Black killed Lawrence's wife in. I mean, we know that for a fact because we actually see Lawrence's daughter here.
Oh, yeah, that's correct. We do. Yeah, I vaguely remembered it and I didn't recognize it at first, but it's Lawrence, it's her daughter, and it triggers some sort of reverie.
I actually paused and went scene by scene through this reverie, so can I break down a couple of things for you?
No. Okay, all right.
I was just going to let you work your way through it.
Oh, good. Oh, you're good. You're good.
Okay, so the first part is Dolores digging a grave outside of a church. Did you catch that part?
I saw it.
Okay, if you pause it, the gravestone actually says Dolores Abernathy. So she's literally digging her own grave with somebody standing behind her. Okay, so also the church, the steeple on top of it is the exact same steeple that was poking up out of the ground that Dr. Ford was looking
Bernard.
at. Yes.
Okay.
Also, today on DelosIncorporated.com, they put up a chart of how to clean bodies at the end of every day. It was called Livestock Management. I put it up on our Twitter and Instagram pages. Okay, so let me read step 2 to you. It says, Undertaker hosts will bury host units in specified graves, which then bottom out into shafts for transport to the Mesa. And I'm assuming Mesa is like the Delos headquarters. So like, basically, if somebody gets buried in Westworld like a robot,
it goes down like through a chute, kind of like at the bank.
Yes,
and then they work on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I thought that was pretty interesting.
That is very interesting.
Now, what do you think about this? And this goes into what you said about like theories that have very little to base on.
Okay.
But is it possible that these shafts could eventually lead Dolores or another host into the headquarters? Like maybe even possibly like the shafts themselves are like this maze that everybody's talking about?
I don't know. I've
just throwing it out there. I mean, obviously we. I mean,
I could see someone going through a shaft and waking up and in the headquarters, but we've already seen Maeve in headquarters, so that wouldn't be too big. But if the entire maze was really just a bunch of underground mazes, kind of like a gerbil gym underground,
yeah,
I feel like that would be kind of lame.
Yeah, it could be like a bit of a indoor labyrinth. Maybe they pump some air conditioning in there to make it a little bit more comfortable for the robots.
And then, eventually the robots end up in a giant ballroom.
Yeah.
Like a ball pit. Like it leaps and bounds or anything.
Yeah, sure. Discovery Zone was the one that I liked when I was a kid.
Oh, okay. All right.
But the other thing that happens here is they show the gun that she had in her possession at her house in the drawer is in this scene right here. She has the gun in her hand at the church. And I will say it's significantly shinier. So you know that this is hearkening back to a long time ago. And I was thinking, like, what if maybe the man behind her here is Arnold and he was helping her discover her consciousness or, something like that. Exactly like Bernard's doing right now, which, Ford intimates that Bernard needs to not make the same mistakes as Arnold. And what if she, for whatever reason, she ends up kind of breaking her programming and seeing him as a threat, kills him, and then they bury this whole area and leave that little steeple coming up out of the ground because, like, they have the gigantic excavator machine that we see later. Like, what if they use that to bury? Obviously, they did bury this entire area. Like, I feel like that's definitely the case. And then the steeple coming up is basically like the grave marker for poor old Arnold.
Possibly. I think it seems silly that they would, like, just because there's a death there, they would just bury a whole part of the park instead of just disposing of the body. But
well, it wouldn't even necessarily just have to be that. Obviously, they make like they're constantly would
new
terraforming be the
stuff.
right? Yeah, I mean they're constantly changing the landscape for new things anyway to make it look different so people don't get stale with the same old things. I mean, we see the excavator doing it in the latter half of the episode.
That's true.
Okay. So anyway, at this point, some random dude walks up and it triggers like a memory of her burying her father. And she's like, I'm not going back. And then they grab each other's arms with like serious intensity. And when I say serious, like the look on her face.
Well, look on her face, look on his face. It's very obvious that this I took as someone at headquarters trying to move her back to the appropriate storyline, but at the same time, they're not sure what exactly is supposed to be happening because of all the stuff that Dr. Ford's doing. But obviously, the moment William walks up and plays nice and is all friendly, the dude like has to not affect the experience of the guest.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, because instantly the guy like smiles, and even Dolores, like the look of intensity and anger and fury just like melts off of her face.
Yeah, it does. I mean, she changes on a dime, which we've seen in scenes with Bernard, but we usually haven't seen it like out in the wild, so to speak.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so Dolores and William are talking away from the camp that night, and he asks where she's going, and then I love this little part where he's like, I kind of figured that they kept you guys on like paths or in zones or something like that.
Yeah, which is very much a video game reference.
Lots of them, especially in this episode, like they just say game, but it's very video gamey.
Yeah, because I mean, there's so many games back in the day when they weren't open world environment. So even though it's obvious an open image of a world, you're stuck on just a very narrow path. And there's that implication. You know, she talks about there's being a path for everyone. She draws parallels between rounding up stray steers with her father, and the fact that she like never realized they were being brought to slaughter. But she has this weird thing where everything goes blank. She keeps having this trippy imagery where she's flashing back to things with her reveries, and you're never really sure what it looks like to William. Like, does it just look like she's being distant, or is like is something wrong? Because
there's actually a scene in Family Guy where they show where Brian and Stewie take like the time travel pad thing and go back in time, and they're watching like an old moment from like an old Family Guy episode, and they're watching through the window,
and they all just freeze when they're looking at a flashback.
And Brian's like, "What are they doing? What is happening right now?" And then they realize that all of a sudden they come back in. They're like, "And that's what happened the second time." That, you know what I mean? Like,
that's pretty funny. That they all just like visually freeze when they're thinking of a flashback together.
Yeah, well, she doesn't understand what he's saying about like the paths and like basically like, you know, that she is a robot. So she's like, I think that there's a path for everyone. Oh yeah, or that. Yeah, she's like, you know, me and my father, we'd round up stray steers, and you know, I never realized when we got back that they were just being brought to the slaughter.
Yeah. This scene was like, I don't know. By this point in the Dolores scenes, I was almost over it.
Wow, not a Dolores fan, huh?
I'm a Dolores fan, but I'm also like at the point of wake up already, you know, and wake up and start kicking some ass already.
Yeah, wake up already. We're 4 episodes into something that's plotted out for a minimum of 5 seasons.
Well, hopefully the entire like crux of the series isn't that I get to watch her like have subtle visions for 5 seasons, because otherwise I won't make it very far.
I doubt that that's the case, but I'm just saying there is some room for a slow build when you have a network that's basically not financially committed to you, but basically allowing you to have the vision and most likely the financial security to be able to move forward on 5 seasons. I think you can take your time to build up a little bit.
You can take it, but you risk having people bored, like I was.
Huh. Okay. Well, yeah. I personally, I did like it. Of course, I guess everybody is allowed to have their own little things here, but like when she's staring at the moon and it switches to a reverie of the cleanup crew scrubbing up the scene, you know, with her family having been killed, I don't know. I guess you're tired of so many different Dolores flashbacks, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, which I think I talked about it on episode 2. Like the whole Groundhog Day thing is annoying to me already as a concept. I just don't want to see the same scene over and over and over from slightly different angles. Yet the Dolores storyline is the only one where I feel like that happens for the most part. The Man in Black is continually moving forward. The stuff with Ford is very interesting. The outside...
Maeve is flashing back pretty frequently, especially in this episode.
This episode too, but isn't the... and maybe I just wasn't paying attention in the past, but wasn't like the murder and everything else completely new that she was flashing to?
Yeah, she has seen different ones. You're not wrong about that. Like, you know, the one was at like the little house on the prairie. And maybe she's had ones, you know, that happened in the whorehouse, some that happened in the streets in Stillwater.
And maybe that's what it is that Maeve is having these like very different reveries that pull up, and she's starting to like piece things together and sketch things out. Whereas with Dolores, it's different flavors of the same thing. And it's not like I hate it. Each, like, they do a good job with the scenes and everything has something to like, but if I were putting one part of the show where I kind of start to tune out at all, it ends up being the tail end of her storylines each time.
Okay, that's I mean, it doesn't bother me, but I actually do see why that's a legitimate complaint. Okay, so let's see. William and Dolores are in the next scene talking to the criminal, or they're talking about the criminal with the bounty hunter, and the bounty hunter's like, giving his lines like, we got to be careful. There's a family in there, and Logan's like, yeah, we get it. Risk versus reward, and then he runs up and kicks the door in, and
guns a-blazing, right?
Yeah, and he says, slap leather, cocksuckers. He does not have a southern accent, by the way. That's just my go-to.
Yeah. I could see him almost trying to impersonate it, but yeah, it's pretty funny. He goes in there, starts immediately shooting people. There's even a point where he grabs a new gun and is like, ooh, an upgrade, which is totally just another video game reference.
So is the fact that he wants to skip the dialogue cutscene and just get straight to the action.
Yeah, the fact that he's like, yeah. Like, how many times have you just hit start because you want to start shooting it?
Yes,
stuff.
He's like your typical, impatient veteran gamer that like has no... he's just over the plot. Honestly, he's probably lived out so many of these plot lines now that, like, maybe when he first came in, he liked to go through them all and, enjoy the immersiveness. But now he's just like, it's exactly like William accuses him of. It's about the fucking and the killing.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say, out of the Dolores storyline, the Logan and William stuff, one thing that stuck out in partnership with the Man in Black stuff is... I was like, is the general plot of this season, and maybe even the next season, the fact that instead of like the Iron Throne in Game of Thrones that everyone's pursuing, are you just going to end up with multiple different parties pursuing the maze?
Possibly.
Right? So where it's like the Man in Black versus Dolores and William and Logan, and maybe one other additional character where they're all trying to figure out this grand scheme. And it more becomes a race of like who gets in each other's way. Are they sabotaging each other? Like, anyway, that's kind of what's starting to
Maeve and
fill
Hector
out.
maybe team up, and yeah, I could see that. It's like an amazing race mixed with Game of Thrones.
Yeah, so which I mean, I'm on board for. I think that would be entertaining.
Yeah, I honestly would enjoy. I mean, that sounds like a really shitty oversimplification of what it would be, but like I actually get what you're saying for if that's what they were all kind of seeking, that would be pretty interesting.
And it really fills into the motif of video games. Like this is the leaderboards. There's multiple parties pursuing the same like objective, and who can do it faster and better and with a higher score.
Yeah, for sure. And so I guess that's we get the last scene, which is Logan, William, Dolores, and the bounty hunter riding with the criminal, and the criminal's like, my boss, Alonzo, he'll pay double. And then at that moment, Logan gets off his horse and just like brains the bounty hunter all over the ground. Yeah,
the back end of his pistol.
Yeah, and no. This is where he literally shoots the bounty hunter in the head.
Yeah, okay, you're right. When I hear braining, I just think of like pistol whipping, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I guess that would work too. In my head, I was thinking of it more of like literally releasing the brains from
just like brain
the hole of their
everywhere.
skull. Yeah,
I think both work, and I think we'll also be using those in The Walking Dead.
Oh my god, yeah, so much brains. But yeah, William's like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? And but Logan's like, you don't even realize what's happened. We were doing your stupid little adventure, and now we've stumbled across this sweet little Easter egg. Alonzo leads right to the best ride in the park.
Yeah, so and this is, I think, where I actually had the thought. Dolores has been told about the maze in a dream. He's talking about the Easter egg and the best ride in the park. And then also Man in Black is after this. So it's almost three parties after it at once. Dolores really isn't with William and Logan. Like, she's playing along. So
it isn't specifically mentioned that the maze is the Easter egg that they're talking about here. My mind went to that. So I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying it is not explicitly said.
No, you're correct. You're correct.
Oh, wow. Thanks, man.
So that's it for the Dolores William Logan story.
There was the one last thing where Logan puts down his gun and says, "Come on, go black hat with me." Like there physically, you see Logan always has the black hat on, while what's his face William has the white hat on.
Two shoes.
Yeah, and he's literally at this moment like saying to him, "Come on, like this is a video game. You gotta get into it. Like you're saying that I'm evil and stuff like that once I get in here, but." you're not getting it. Like, this is not reality. This is just a game, and like, this is how I'm choosing to play it. Like, now put on your black hat and let's fucking do this.
Do you feel like the opening scene of next episode where we first see William, he's just going to be having sex with a dead robot corpse? He's like, I'm black hatting it. That's what
Logan's
you asked for.
Logan's like, oh, too far, dude. Too
Yeah,
far.
like, oh, Jesus, man. Like, you're not marrying my sister.
Unleash the beast.
Yeah.
All right, so you want to do the Theresa, Ford, and Bernard plot line? It's a little bit shorter than the Dolores one, but honestly, the moment with Theresa and Bernard, or I'm sorry, Theresa and Ford is one of the best parts of the whole fucking episode.
Absolutely. Yeah, so this stuff is very interesting. I mean, first you have Elsie and Theresa talking about the host from last episode that just smashed his head in. And continually, they are worried about all this behavior, but ultimately, Bernard seems so uninterested. And you know, as the viewer, like, he knows the extent of this stuff. He's been talking with Dolores, but ultimately he keeps playing it off as something being minor. And he even goes so far as to talk to Elsie and point out that the carving, it was like a tortoiseshell carving that she thought was Orion's belt, and kind of played into this grand conspiracy. He's like,
3 stars, not 4.
Yeah, it's 3 stars, not 4. You're imagining it anyway. So he is, you know, at this point, I'm even more so like, I really feel like he's just an android for Ford, because he just continues to really not even do a good job of pretending he's interested in this whole ordeal.
No, it's like he's not actively fucking up any investigation into it. He's just like pure apathy.
Yes. I mean, there's not really a better way to describe it. And then you continue to get more of Theresa and Bernie and their relationship, which was there really much that came out of like their interaction?
Can I just say one thing about that interaction?
Yeah.
You know, because of his face, like, he's so full cheeked, like he looks like a bit of a chubber. But I have to say, like, when they show him in his little boxers and his white shirt, he's like a relatively muscular, in shape guy. That kind of threw me off a little bit. Like, he just looks a little schlubby most of the time, but he actually looks like, you know, like he could probably go out and get sick in the paint on a basketball court.
I could see that. I will say that the majority of the time I see him, I feel like he's a character played by, and I can't remember which one, but Key and Peele.
Okay, that would be Peele, right?
Is it Peele? Yeah, I think it's Peele. But I just feel like it's Peele playing this character.
He does actually look pretty much exactly like him. Like, they look like they could be brothers.
And Peele is schlubby, so you're right. It did take me aback that he was, you know, svelte.
I love that you just admitted that. I thought there's no fucking way Mathis is going to mention anything about this guy's body shape.
I figured you could lure me into anything.
That's funny. Okay, very good. All right, so Theresa does go to meet with Dr. Ford, who is opening that huge fucking crater in the ground with that massive excavator. And there is another little Easter egg here. The robot workers that are tilling the soil, like right next to where they're at, you saw them, right? Like, they're up on like that bluff overlooking the excavator, and then right next to them are the people kind of like doing the whole chain gang sort of thing. Like, looks like they're breaking rocks. Those are the exact same robot workers, and credit to user M1919_TSCC on Reddit. Those are the exact same hosts that Lee Sizemore had originally created for his little Odyssey on the Red River plotline, who have now been repurposed into breaking rocks for Fords.
They're like, his grand masterpiece is like Ford's chain gang.
Yeah, exactly. So I just thought, like, that is really, really funny, and such like a subtle little dig from Ford to Lee Sizemore.
I feel like based on the name, like the screen name of that user, that it might be one of those repurposed robots that's just trying to get the word out.
0000001.
Yeah, M19 anyway. So finally you have Ford and Theresa actually sit down in this very I don't know if you'd call it a grotto, I don't know the actual term, but like a very European like winery overlooking vineyards. It's fantastic. It's like Olive Garden but for real. And
yeah, it is.
Right? Yeah. And, you know, but immediately she wants to talk about protecting his legacy. And
yeah, like he's some doddering old fool.
Yeah, and he's not having it. He smirks, and he ultimately is like, look, I've seen many of you come and go.
No, do the accent.
I've seen many of you come and go. You're the one that does not enjoy this place. I can't do his accent without eating a kidney.
Yeah, I know. And she's like, yeah, I think I came here as a kid. And she's like,
maybe a
I even
table
sat
back?
at this exact table, or was it the one over there? And Ford's like, Arnold begged me not to let you people in. The money people. Delos. He had a dim view of humans. He preferred the hosts.
And then you have one of the robot waiters pouring her wine again, but it doesn't stop and it's starting to overflow, and then you kind of have the music get creepy.
Yeah,
and,
ominous.
Yeah, and all the waiters and waitresses are still, and then all of a sudden...
And she's like looking around. She's like, at first,
Yeah.
obviously, at the guy with the wine, but then she looks to the right. There's the waiters have all stopped. She looks out in the field. All of them are just completely frozen. So not only is he controlling one with like a voice thing, he is literally God right now.
Yeah, he has turned into God. All of humanity... Not really humanity, but has stopped, at his whim. And he very nicely, he does say it fairly nicely, but he essentially says, I'll ask you nicely, please don't get in my way, as a giant, machine is coming very close to where they're at, just destroying and wrecking stuff. And she gets the picture that, I don't know, I guess he's not playing around. And this, I think, is following the reference about someone else, the representative that's already been here.
The representative that's already been here?
Yeah, remember, who you were saying it might be Logan?
Oh, yeah. This is the scene where where she's like, that's all good and well, but the board is going to want to send somebody here. And he's like, oh, I thought they'd have told you. He's already been here. And he has a couple of awesome lines here. Like when he's talking about Arnold, he's like, in here we were gods, but you are merely my guest. And then that's when she realizes oh, this was the exact table I sat at as a kid. And he tells her we know everything about our guests. We know everything about our employees. Nothing happens by accident here. Oh, and then I love, he says, do be careful with Bernard. He does have a sensitive disposition.
Yeah, and that's the implication you were talking about earlier, where he's strongly implying, at least to the audience, that he's very similar to Arnold. But it does leave some things open, who is this representative? Which it could be Logan. We're going to talk about Man in Black here soon enough, in which case we can go down that road as well. But I think before we get into any of that, it's time for an Audible ad.
Oh yeah, make music.
Music. All right, we'll be right back.
Oh yeah. Get your free month trial to Audible at www.audibletrial.com/Boob Tube Buddies. Why the funky beat, you ask? I wanted to download the book Making Music Your Business, a guide for young musicians, but first, I wanted to see if I have what it took to make music.
English, motherfucker!
I guess some of us just don't got it. I'll stick to podcasting and never do anything like this again. Seriously, swear to God I won't. If you go to www.audibletrial.com/BoobTubeBuddies, it's a free month for you and money in our pockets. Over 180,000 titles to choose from, like Making Music Your Business, a guide for young musicians. Drop the beat, little buddies.
And we're back. My goodness, that was an amazing ad about making music.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I love I love that our Audible ads are some next level shit.
Yeah, for anybody listening, you can play them straight off of our website. You don't have to download anything or, get led anywhere else. They just play straight off of it. And we got a bunch of musical ones, a bunch of just read ones, and all of them are attempting to be funny at the very least. So yeah. We definitely put probably about as much time into our Audible ads as we do actually prepping for our episodes.
Yeah, I would say at least.
All right, so let's get into pretty much everyone's favorite character.
The Man in Black.
But Man in Black eyeliner, Mathis Coos.
So he's killing a rattlesnake. I can't remember when, but he got some kind of clue that the snake will lead him to the way. And
from Lawrence's daughter in episode 2.
There we go. So Lawrence is sitting behind him. He still has a noose around his neck. And, he's just basically talking about this whole world is a story. But as he's talking about trying to find this snake hint, right, and he cuts a cobra or whatever in half, and there's nothing there. Rattlesnake in half. That makes more sense to Western. Maybe a python.
It could be. I thought I heard the.
Oh, that's probably true. Anyway, he looks down at the ravine. No, is there a better body of water you could correct me on?
I would just say it's the Blood Arroyo.
What the fancy? Is that a fancy river name?
That's just what they call it in the show.
Blood Arroyo.
Yeah, you got to roll your tongue though. Arroyo.
I swear we had this same exact semantic argument.
100%. Anyway. Oh God, no! I'll never make you do that again. I hate it.
So anyway, he sees Armistice naked cleaning up at the river, and she has a snake tattoo all across her back. I feel like you should
make that sound again. As you're talking about her bathing nude.
Armistice.
Oh God,
it's good, right?
Yeah. No, not really.
Okay. Anyway, he sees that clue and says, "By golly, I'm gonna go after it."
Yep, that definitely sounds like him, the by golly. But at that moment, the rest of her gang, minus Hector, come up behind them and ambush them. And just long story short, basically, like they're saying, like they're going to rescue Hector. They don't even say that, like they're going to find something valuable. But they've already got enough men, to which the Man in Black responds by shooting 2 of them and says, "Hey, looks like you got 2 openings."
To which, I guess Armistice takes a liking to that.
Oh, God. Okay. I am very sorry to you and the listeners for making you do that. We got to make it stop right now. Fucking vomit.
So at this point, we now see that you almost wonder, like, is she going to accept that? Or is she going to be pissed that he kills his men? But sure enough, Man in Black, Lawrence, and Armistice, they're all camping at night. And, you also have, this is where the actual scene happens, where the guests come up, and he clearly is a well-known person, like maybe a Bill Gates type.
Yes, that's exactly who I was thinking was like a Bill Gates. And the guy says, "Listen, your foundation saved my sister's life," and then Man in Black just stops him right there. "One more word, and I'll cut your throat. This is my fucking vacation."
Yeah, he is double nonplussed about being interrupted during his vacation, right?
Yeah.
And this is actually why, I took him, it's very, vague implications. He's a celebrity of some sort that someone would recognize him, but I definitely took him as a Elon Musk or Bill Gates type of person, which, in my mind, 100% is a large investor in Delos.
Yeah, I mean, that is the reason why it is a possibility. Either way, we can safely assume that he is extremely wealthy and, like you said, has some level of notoriety.
Yes, some level of notoriety, extremely wealthy definitely has to be the case because he's been doing this for, 30 years?
Yeah.
So you have to assume that, from the prices we've seen online and the prices that Logan and them have talked about, that's the only way that this man could be doing this for 30 years, if it's not the other thing we were talking about way earlier, which is slipped a consciousness into a robot. He's not really a guest that's paying. He's just a robot with a human consciousness going around and having a good time.
If that were the case, then he'd be a robot that's already been slipping back and forth between the real world and Westworld, too.
Yeah, because they recognize him.
Yeah, but anyway, Lawrence tells the Man in Black about their plan to break into this prison, and basically, it's going to take a few days. And Man in Black is like, "I don't have time for that colors by number bullshit." And then he walks up to Armistice, and he's like, "All right, well, ride at dawn. I'll get whatever you want out of the prison. In exchange, I want the story behind your tattoos."
Yeah, and he asks if she's ever heard of a man named Arnold.
Yeah, which I thought very interesting.
Very interesting, because why? So now you're starting to get curious, because all these people, all these robots that they've noticed are having anomalies have been talking to someone named Arnold, right?
Yes.
That's the thing that's going on. Is the Man in Black the one that's planting the seeds?
I mean, it's a possibility that he is an instrument of Arnold.
Or is he simply going around and maybe running into these robots having anomalies that are talking to Arnold, and that's why he's curious about it, and that's why he thinks it's part of the maze?
Oh, like they're almost leading him a little bit to it by having these anomalies?
Yeah, maybe maybe the anomalies are part of the very, very expert level maze that it's hard to find otherwise, and someone that playing for 30 years has never gotten to.
That's true. I think that it bears mentioning. We don't normally quote big segments here, but I actually wrote down this one because I feel like it's so integral to what he's doing with trying to find the maze. He says, okay, like Arnold was the original settler of these parts, a world where you can do whatever you want except one thing. You can't die, which means no matter how real the world seems, it's still just a game. But then Arnold broke his own rules and he died in the park. I believe he had one story left to tell. It's a story with real stakes and real violence, and I'm here to honor his legacy, and I think your tattoo is the next piece of the puzzle.
Yes, which I'm immediately thinking when he's saying that whatever this expert level that they're all getting to, right? So if the idea is that maybe we're going to have multiple parties converging on this maze, that once they find this expert level, everyone can die.
Maybe. I don't know. I guess stakes, I hadn't really thought about it like
real
that.
Real stakes and real violence. And he just says before that, except one thing, you can't die. I feel like that's what differentiates the experience, is there's real risk.
Yeah, I agree. When you said everybody, I thought you meant like all of a sudden everybody in the park turns into... But I see what you're saying.
I mean
anybody
like all
who's
the parties
there.
Going towards the maze, yeah.
Definitely, yeah. Like a blood or like a battle royale sort of thing.
Yeah, because right now all the characters that are converging on it, like they're either protected because they're guests or they're robots that are going to get rebuilt. So there's no real risk of losing a character. Maybe like this season ends, they're in the maze, and that's when we really get like the heightened stakes of next season. But speculation.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. And then he says, I just need a single match to break your friend out of prison. So the next scene is Lawrence and the Man in Black being driven into the prison by, I don't know, like a federal marshal, sheriff type guy. And the Man in Black gives him a cigar. And I guess at this point, they get to the prison. Lawrence goes off to get shot, I guess, by the firing squad, while the Man in Black gets put in the cell with Hector.
Yeah, and he asks for the match. It's kind of clever storytelling because he doesn't even offer really a cigarette. He just pulls a cigar. He pulls a cigar out. He asks for a light. He talks about how high quality they are, and you can even have one. And then just the sheriff being a dick steals the other two that he's holding out and leaves him with the one, but then you realize that is the dynamite. Yeah,
exactly. Super cool the way that he does it too, because he ends up, he has a quick little conversation with Hector. I guess that there's probably not too much there that needs to be mentioned, right? Like he basically, they've never met before.
Yeah, and they make an alliance.
Yeah, and so then he stuffs the cigar into the lock, lights it real quick, blows into it to make sure that it actually stays lit in there, backs up, it blows the lock mechanism out, he kicks the door, he goes into the hallway, all of a sudden the sheriff turns the corner with the cigar in his mouth.
The cigar, just perfect. He doesn't have to pull a gun or do anything, the guy just blows up.
It was
awesome.
Super fucking cool.
Yeah.
Definitely, like, I feel like there are certain games where you can just go around like blasting your way through things, but then there are games like a Metal Gear Solid where you have to like think your way through different parts. I felt like, to me, that was kind of like a Metal Gear Solid.
Very much. This was like the stealth mission.
Yeah. So
we had to be a little sneakier until you actually detonate the explosives.
Yeah. So then he goes and he fetches Lawrence, which is a cool scene too, because Lawrence is just being put in front of the firing squad. The blindfolds put down in front of his eyes. He's just waiting for the count off and waiting for the bullets. And he starts hearing the shooting and he's just flinching, but nothing's hitting him. And I'm sure he's like, how the fuck are they missing me? Just let it end already. And then all of a sudden the Man in Black comes up and pulls the blindfold up. It was just a good little scene.
It was. And then finally, he actually gets to talk to Armistice about the tattoos because he made good on his end of the bargain.
Yep, and so now we get the next piece of the puzzle to get to the maze, which is he needs to find Wyatt.
Yes, which is very interesting because we've seen, I guess Wyatt maybe was part of different narratives, but we've actually seen Wyatt be made as
very recently
as the enemy of Teddy.
Yeah, I do agree though that this maze thing can't be a recent plot line, or at the very least, no, I shouldn't say it can't be, but it doesn't seem like it's a recent plot line. It seems like it's something that's always been kind of buried there. That maybe I'm just projecting that onto it, but yeah, maybe Wyatt was the key, regardless of his new plot line or not. Like maybe that's the thing with this maze is regardless of the new programming of these things, each robot that leads to your next clue to get to the maze, no matter what new plot line they've been thrust into, they still retain that basic level of programming that leads to the maze.
Yeah, it's possible. The other idea too, because like you're also wondering what is Ford's new project. Is it possible at all that maybe he's just realizing that now it's at a point where this park has been around for so long that that there's actually someone getting to the maze, and maybe he still has to build the ultimate story that it arrives at.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe that's part of what's quickening the pace there with him setting that up.
So anyway, lots of unanswered questions, but now we have Maeve.
Yeah, real quick, the man in black, goes off now with Lawrence to go find, what's his face, to go find Wyatt. And who does he see hanging from a tree on his way there? It's Teddy. Or hanging from a post. And can I just say, oh my God, they didn't kill Teddy.
Yeah, right. You bastards. He
does look pretty fucked up, though.
I saw on Facebook, I can't remember who it was, but someone had just posted that they really liked James Marsden and they thought he was a good actor, but they just always thought he got the short end of the stick, and he was good Cyclops in the X-Men movies, but he didn't actually get to do anything in the movies. He didn't have anything really integral. Yeah. And they were really excited. This was Westworld episode 1 had just aired. Really excited for him to really get a good part and maybe some acting chops, and he's just a dead robot joke.
Every single episode
so far, which I was like, yeah, your wish isn't coming true. Sorry, James.
That is really funny. Okay, so we get into the Maeve plot line here, and we get our next piano song. Did you recognize it by chance?
I didn't. I listened for it. I didn't know what it was.
Are you a fan of The Cure?
I do like The Cure.
Yeah, The Cure is probably, I'd say between my 10th and 15th favorite band of all time. Just a really big Cure fan. And this was The Forest by The Cure.
Oh, okay. All
yeah,
right.
So in episode 1, we had Black Hole Sun and Paint It Black. In episode 2, we had No Surprises by Radiohead. In episode 3, obviously, we had Debussy. And the other song, which I found out since, was Marilyn Manson, The Nobodies.
Well, there's also one song where there's maybe some of the episodes have 2 songs, but one of them was an old 1920s song by Scott Joplin or something.
Yeah, I was only counting the modern or rock type music being put into it. But I mean, you're right. There are other songs happening.
I say that only because I didn't realize there's this many songs that they've even played 4 episodes in.
Oh yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 so far.
Gotcha. Because Paint It Black 2 wasn't even a piano song. It was just this orchestral thing.
It did start out. I started off as a piano song, and then the strings came in, and they left the original. I don't know what you would call it, the format of it, because it started off as a piano thing, Gotcha. And then kind of shifted into strings. I'm pretty sure.
Fair enough.
Okay, so yeah, we get Clementine and Maeve joking about some cowpoke's big old thunderstick, about how Clementine should have been paying him.
Yeah, because he was hung.
Jesus Christ, Mothman.
Sorry, I had to modernize the language a little bit. Our audience might have been confused. He's rod.
Oh, no. Stop it.
But she has a bit of a reverie, and she's looking into Clementine's eye, and then all of a sudden it's Clementine's eye in the same position, but her face is laying on the floor, and blood is filling inside of her eye, almost like eyeliner. Yeah. And you realize there might have been a little bit of violence.
Yes, and then... she's looking over, and there's this guest that's sitting over there drinking and laughing it up, and he's the one who did it. So I wasn't sure exactly of the timeline of this, but then she sees the hazmat suit cleanup crew technician guys come in with their big old weird helmets and take her to the Delos headquarters. And did you catch during this moment she actually overhears them very lightly talking about her having a bullet fragment still in her abdomen, but they're too rushed to pull it out in that moment. So like she goes home to examine the skin and doesn't see the wound, but she does see like the spot of blood on her blouse.
I did not hear that, because I was actually going to bring up, like, at what point did she like have a bullet left in her? And I was wondering if I missed something from last episode, and maybe because she got up in the middle of like fucking surgery and ran away and they had to like go grab her.
Okay, yeah.
They never got around to grabbing the bullet, and said they just sewed her up and like tried not to get in trouble.
Yeah, basically like they needed her back out on the floor in this episode.
So that's the confirmation then. Yeah, I did not hear that. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, so okay, so then you get so at this point she's in her house, she's frantically scribbling on a piece of paper, and she draws the technician, and then when she goes to put it in the floorboard, the hidden spot, she sees that she has done this exact same thing like,
a lot of times.
Yes, and
like 6 times or so.
Can we just mention the fact that Maeve is constantly going off the rails, and like only the one time a couple episodes back was actually caught on camera doing it?
What do you mean?
Like they're being constantly monitored. She only the one time in episode 2 at the bar was like brought in because of it. But she's had multiple reveries where she just like complete. And I get where maybe at her house they're not monitoring her because they're monitoring where guests are.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like the monitoring earlier was in context of storylines in the actual bar. And maybe like they have strict, like for guest privacy, they aren't going to be filming inside of the brothel where they're banging.
But she's having plenty of them in like the lobby area, whatever you want to call it, the main serving area at the brothel, the bar. She's having plenty of them there that are going unregistered.
Sure.
And so I get like when she goes to her house, I get that there's no guests at her house. They can't be monitoring every single one of those things 100% of the time, like checking for facial cues and stuff. So I get that, but at the very least at the bar, I'm like, the fuck are they not catching some of this?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like some of the ones we've seen, like one of them where she was staring off into space, but she was talking to a guest. Maybe they just wouldn't notice it because it was guest interaction and the guest just happened to get up. There's another time where she was kind of having one where she was getting rough and also seductive with like a female guest. So maybe the only reason they aren't catching it is because most of them is happening in dialogue with someone else, not just like...
Those are the ones that they kind of were catching, though. What they're not catching are the robot-on-robot ones. And again, I get it.
Because there's not a guest involved, maybe?
Yes, but there are guests in the room. So like I feel like they are monitoring all the conversations. And I don't know. Some of them I feel like they should be catching. And I'm just curious what the distinction there is. And I understand the part about like when there's no guests involved, but if they're in the room with guests and one of them's acting bizarre enough for Clementine or any other robot, James Marsden's character, to catch it, I just feel like, I don't know. It just occasionally it just took me out of it, thinking like, how is nobody fucking noticing this? Like the Hector and when Hector comes into the room there at the end, they're slicing themselves up. They are monitoring that whole thing that's happening because they're trying to get it wrapped up quickly before the guests, the families roll into town.
Sure.
Yeah, so like how did they not catch that one?
I don't know. You're right. It's bullshit. It's bad writing.
Thanks, man.
All right, perfect. Moving on. So we also have her first reverie we saw, or one of the first big ones was like oriented around like the Native American attack and then the Man in the Black showing up. And this one you have more Native Americans moving through Stillwater, and one of them has a toy that looks kind of like the stylized version of the technicians that she's been drawing.
Yeah, it's like the Pip Boy version of it.
Yeah, a little bit like a mix between
pop art sort of thing.
Yeah. And he basically says it's part of their religion, and so there's like, she's still trying to piece things together and trying to understand where these visions are coming from, and what's actually going on.
Yeah, and that ends up playing into to the moment with Hector, because first she asks some random dude in the crowd like what is this, or no, she's screaming out at the little girl who dropped it, and some random dude in the crowd tells her that it has something to do with their religion. So
yeah, which was weird that like some random dude steps in to explain that.
yeah, just basically like the writers just put him in there just to further the understanding of what that is that she picked up.
Yeah,
shoehorn.
Pretty much. But at this point, we have like her in the brothel and Hector's gang, and we've seen this whole scene before from a prior episode, which the like giddy middle-aged guy and his like wife stop this whole fight, which is really funny. Like, he just shoots him in the neck and it's over, and he's celebrating.
It's the painted black scene.
Yeah. So we've seen this whole thing happen once before. So what makes this one different?
Okay, well, first off, Clementine ahead of time, they're talking like after the Indians had walked through, the Native Americans, the indigenous people. I know you fucking hate it when I say the wrong term there, so my bad. But after that part, she walks up and she talks to Clementine about it, and they actually end up talking about Hector. And Clementine's saying that Hector lived with the savages, their term, not mine. And so at this point, like when Hector is coming into town, we know now that since he lived with the Native Americans, that they're gonna have he might have some clue as to what this thing is. So she basically, at gunpoint, brings Hector upstairs when he bursts into the bar and is like, "I'll give you the combination for the safe. I just want some answers." And so if she shows him the drawing and wants to know like what is this, and let's see. This is the point where the lady in the control room, by the way, is saying like, "Oh, there's a family who wrapped up their thing and they're heading into town." And Stubbs is like, "Okay, disable Hector's gang's guns and send in the cavalry early. Let's like get this done with." So that, which I thought was interesting because we have discussed before how could you take your kids to a place like this? And obviously it seems like they kind of orchestrate the experience around it to the best ability that they can.
Yeah, like this is the first time they've actually shown where they're making adjustments for the family, because we have seen young kids in it, but not really around all like the violent set pieces. So this is the first time you see kind of confirmation that they're like, "Oh, okay, we'll just send the cavalry in early, disable their guns."
Other than the kid that talked to Dolores on the riverbank, have we seen an actual human kid in here?
I think that's the first kid. The kid talking to Dolores, I think, was the first kid.
The first and only so far, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, because the boy who was talking with Ford was almost definitely a robot.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Okay, then this is the only human boy we've seen was the one talking to Dolores in the first episode.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So anyway, maybe we'll see more children soon in the aftermath of this, but meanwhile, while this is all happening, Maeve basically takes Hector upstairs to the safe and says, "I'm going to get you into the code."
Yeah, so she gives him part of the conversation after he tells her that that this picture is what the Native Americans refer to as a shade. And she asks, "What does the shade do?" And he says, "It's a man that walks between both worlds, sent from hell to oversee our world." And she gives him another number. And then she hikes up her dress to show her stomach. And she grabs out his knife and tells him she was shot in the stomach, right in this spot. And that
he's like, "I don't see anything."
Yeah, there's no wound. And then the shade was standing over her. And then it was like it never happened. And she wants him to cut into that spot. And he's like, "I've never hurt a defenseless woman before."
Yeah, he's not really planning on doing it.
No, so he is not about that.
Yeah, so she just takes the knife from him and does it herself, which I guess the only reason she really brought him out there was to find more about the shade, so to speak. But she starts it and then kind of like has him try to finish it, but ultimately he didn't believe her. There was no scar, but lo and behold, she pulls out a bullet.
Yep. And then so this is like, as opposed to a reverie, this is like a revelation basically. But at this point, the constable is outside the door and he's knocking, and she says, Hector says, "What does this mean?" And then she says, "It means that none of this fucking matters." And then she kisses him and he smears blood all over her face, and then bullets start flying through the door, and scene.
Yeah, so I don't know. Overall, every episode's been great. A lot of things moving forward. Nothing becoming really clear. Like every episode at this point has as many questions as it does answers, but like so much fun. So much fun.
Yeah, I am really, really enjoying it. I think that I don't know that this was my favorite episode. I'm going to go ahead and say still episode 1, just because of the introduction to it. It's still my favorite. But this is up there so far. I'm just fucking loving it. Like, I'm completely hooked and I'm completely into it. I want to see where it goes. Even the plot lines that could get a little monotonous still are getting my jollies.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no, like, we were talking about earlier, the Dolores line kind of getting to me, but it's the lesser scenes, in my opinion, of an amazing show. So, none of those are anything that I want to really turn it off of. It's just when I think back about the next day, there's a lot of strong scenes that stick out. But overall, I absolutely love it. Really enjoying it. And we got 10 episodes total, so we still have 6 left.
Yeah, hell yeah.
So a lot of fucking development to happen still. So I can't wait to see where this ends up with season 1.
Agreed. So, okay, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. We've still got our Walking Dead podcast to go do now. And for everybody tuning in, thank you very much for listening. You can go to www.boobtubebuddies.com to listen to our other episodes. On top of the ones we mentioned earlier, we've done we've done seasons of things like Stranger Things, Preacher, and The Get Down, stuff like that, which you can go back and check out. So I guess, Mothman, if you want to go ahead and tie a bow on this bitch.
Yeah, we'll see you next time, little buddies.